What am I hearing? Chapter 10, reading from John Bybee book, BB, The Magic Bicycle. Why did I say chapter 10? I'm on chapter 17. Oh, that's where I am. I think I'm supposed to be on chapter 10. Oh man, I'm confused now. Okay, okay, chapter 10. All right. I got it figured out. All right. I'm on chapter 10. Magic Bicycle. Barry's Wild Ride. Barry Schmedlow is going to go for a ride on the Spirit Flyer. At 1 minute to midnight that same night, Barry Smedlow stood in the darkness next to the black truck advertising Goliath toys. He looked nervously in both directions. He was sure no one at his house had heard him sneak out. He had stayed in the shadows as he ran to keep his appointment with Grinsby. He knocked on the door of the truck. Quietly, the door opened. Barry climbed inside. Horace Grinsby smiled at Barry for several seconds, then spoke. "You failed, didn't you?" Grinsby said. "But never mind, we all fail. But you must not fail tonight. Bring me the bicycle, and the money will be yours." Okay, let's turn 2 pages. And the money will... 687, 88. Huh. Oh, well, are you ready? There's a line down below. Then the money will be yours. Are you ready? I think so, Barry said. But can I have some more of that candy first? That kind you gave me this afternoon? Certainly, lad. Certainly, Grinsby said. The candy always seemed to work, especially with greedy boys like Barry. Grinsby opened a large black sack and took out 6 pieces. The candies were a little larger than a marble and wrapped in black cellophane. Barry peeled the wrapper off one. The oblong candy was hard and green on the outside, tasting like a strong mint, but a red slash in the center looked just like a cat's eye. The red part had a strange flavor, very, very sweet, but an unusual sweetness. Then inside was a black, chewy center that looked like licorice, but it didn't taste anything like Barry had ever eaten before. A sort of bitter taste. Barry popped the candy into his mouth. He rolled it around on his tongue. "What do you call these anyway?" Barry asked. "I've never seen them for sale around here." "Oh, they're very special candies," Grinsby said. "The company I work for makes them. You can't really buy them. We only give them to our friends and best customers. We call them Sweet Temptations. Sweet Temptations. Can I have some more?" "No," Grinsby said. "Not until you complete the job. You better get going." "But what if somebody sees me?" Barry complained. "His uncle is a sheriff. I could get in trouble." "That's your problem," Grinsby said. "If you want to check it out, I can get someone else who wants the money and the candy. So are you ready or not?" "I guess so," Barry said slowly. But in his heart, he wasn't sure. The close call with the pickup truck had scared him. Barry still couldn't understand how John avoided the crash. The old red bike seemed to fly right over the truck. Barry thought that was the real reason why Grinsby wanted the bike. "Why do you want that old bike so much? Why don't you steal it yourself?" "As I told you," Grinsby said, smiling proudly, "my company wants to make sure the right bike wins tomorrow's race, a Goliath Cobra. And we're not really stealing it, we're borrowing it for a while. I'll return it myself after the race with a little money attached to the seat. I offered to buy the old bike, but that real silly Kramer boy wouldn't sell. This will be a harmless joke, so it isn't really stealing, is it?" "So it isn't really stealing, is it?" "I guess not," Barry said. "You said you'd help me, though. Are you coming with me?" "Of course not," Grinsby said. "I'm staying right here in the truck. You bring the bike to me." "But how will I get in?" Barry asked. "You said you'd help." "Use this," Grinsby said. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a black metal object. Dark metal glinted in his palm. One end had the head of a snake, and the other end was a flattened rod with a small X on the end. This will fit any lock at the Kramer house. How can it do that? Barry asked. I've never heard of a key like that. It's like a skeleton key, only more special, Grimsby grunted. Hurry up, you haven't got all night. Grimsby gave the unusual key to Barry. For some reason, the key felt warm, not really hot, but warmer than a piece of metal should feel, Barry thought. He would have said something, but Grimsby was impatient. Barry put the key into his pocket. The truck door creaked eerily in the dark stillness of the night of the street. Don't be long, Grimsby hissed. Barry nodded, then walked quickly away from the truck. The streets were quiet and empty. Barry walked into the shadows, taking no chances of being seen. But he didn't realize that he was being watched. A large black cat with green eyes crept softly behind him, watching every step the boy took. Don't ask me about the cat, because I don't know nothing about it. Don't be long, Grimsby. Okay. Barry popped another piece of candy into his mouth. He loved the sweet, minty taste the best. The red part was good, but the black part was too bitter, even making his stomach ache a little bit. The strong, sweet... The strong, sweet flavors almost covered the bitterness. Barry sucked greedily on the sweet temptation as he crept through the darkness. When he got close to the Kramer's house, he stopped. For the first time, he began to feel afraid. I could really get into trouble, Barry thought. What if they catch me? Barry stared at the dark house. It seemed like a voice was telling him, no, don't do it. Yet right away another voice whispered, telling him to hurry up and steal the bike. His second candy was almost gone. The savage, strange, bitter taste filled his mouth. Maybe I should just go home, he thought. Barry popped in another sweet temptation. The strong, sweet flavor made him feel better. It'll be easy to take the bike, Barry thought. Do it, the voice whispered. It's only borrowing, not stealing. Barry threw the candy wrapper down and walked quickly toward the Kramer house. Hiding in the shadows, he sneaked up to the small side door to the garage. Barry touched a strange key in his pocket. It still felt unusually warm. The sweet candy taste increased in his mouth as he held the key. He didn't think the key would fit the lock, but he tried it anyway. To his surprise, the key slid right in. He heard 3 clicks and the door opened a crack. It didn't even turn the key, Barry said to himself. I didn't even turn the doorknob, but it opened. Barry sucked harder on the sweet temptation, then stepped inside the garage. He waited, letting his eyes get used to the darkness. Then he saw it. The Spirit Flyer was leaning against the wall next to a high metal shelf. Barry tiptoed over to the old bike, being careful not to bump anything. He grabbed the handlebars and pushed the bike to the door. He was extra careful not to make noise. Once outside, he closed the door softly, making sure it was locked. Then he wiped away his fingerprints, using his shirt tail. Barry was sure no one saw him pedal to the old black truck. A large black cat did chase him for a while, but then it disappeared into the darkness. That was easy, Barry thought, laughing quietly as he rode up to the truck. Horace Grimsby was watching through the windows. What a stupid, greedy boy, he thought. He would believe anything you told him. Grimsby chuckled to himself. He put on a pair of black gloves and picked up a large hammer. His hands shook in excitement as he opened the back doors of the truck. I got it, Barry said. It was really easy. The key worked like magic. Yes, of course, Grimsby said. He hid the hammer behind his back. It's a very special key. It's even better than magic. Give it back now. Barry took the unusually warm key and put it in the black-gloved hand. He sat on the seat of the Spirit Flyer, waiting. He sat back on the seat of the Spirit Flyer, waiting for the money and candy Grimsby had promised. But the odd man remained silent, just staring at the old bike. Can I have my money and candy? I need to get home. Certainly, Grimsby said, but you must do one more small thing for me. What? Barry asked suspiciously. He didn't like the look in Grimsby's eyes. Why don't we change the Spirit Flyer a tiny bit? Grimsby said. Then he chuckled with this. We can still return it later, only changed. The man in the derby pulled the hammer out from behind his back. The hammer was big, like a small sledgehammer. Something wet and dark dripped from it onto the street. What do you mean, Barry asked him. What's that stuff dripping? He reached over and touched the wetness. He held his finger in the light. It was red and looked just like... Hey, what is this anyway? It looks just like blood or something. Don't be silly, young man. It's a special type of grease, that's all. Now let's not waste any more time. Hit the bike. Take this and hit it hard. Do it as I say. We haven't much time. We must do it before the grease dries. ... Grease dries. But I thought you just wanted to play a joke on him, Barry protested. Just so he wouldn't enter the race. I don't know if I really want to hurt his bike. Barry stared at the liquid dripping near his feet. Grimsby shoved the hammer at him. Barry took it, his arms sagging under the weight. I don't care about the silly race. Just hurry up, Grimsby commanded. We haven't much time. Have another candy. Grimsby pulled a handful of sweet temptations from his pocket. He unwrapped two and stuffed them into Barry's greedy mouth. Eat two. The flavor increases. Go on. We haven't much time. Barry's doubts about hitting the spirit flyer suddenly melted away as the candies dissolved in his mouth. The flavor did increase. Now raise the hammer, Grimsby said. Barry did as he was instructed. Now hit the front wheel. Smash it good. Shouldn't I get off first? Barry asked, raising a leg to hop off the bike. No, Grimsby shouted. Do it now, you idiot. Hit the bike. Barry raised the hammer high above his head and began to swing down. At that moment, the old bike suddenly jerked backward, throwing Barry off balance. He dropped the heavy hammer to the ground. What happened? Barry asked. Who pulled the bike? No, I won't allow it, Grimsby screamed. He ran to pick up the hammer. What's going on? Barry asked. He looked behind him to see who pulled the bike. All he saw was the dark street. Grimsby tried to give him the hammer, but when Barry reached for it, the spirit flyer jumped forward so suddenly that it almost knocked Barry off. This time the old red bicycle didn't stop, but whizzed by Grimsby so close that he dove for cover under his truck. Then it continued down the dark street with Barry hanging on, screaming like a cat with its tail caught in a fan. The spirit flyer shot up and down the deserted street so fast that all he could do was hold on. On his first scream, Barry swallowed the two candies, but they didn't go all the way down. They stuck in his throat. Barry tried to scream, but only made a gurgling sound. The old red bike shot around the corner like a rocket out of a cannon. Like a rocket out of control. When Barry looked down, he saw that the wheels were 4 inches above the ground, off the ground. He was flying. Barry's face went pale. He pushed down on the brake, but the old bike just went faster, turning the corner onto Elm Street. Barry thought about jumping, but the ground was a blur below him. He was going too fast. Then he saw the large hole and the blinking yellow sign warning, keep away. Barry stumped hard on the brake again, but the bike went faster. Barry's eyes opened wide with fear as he rushed toward the hole. Well, why didn't I just stay in bed? Barry said to himself. He closed his eyes and waited for the crash. Trying to scream, but the crash didn't happen. The spirit flyer shot straight for the hole. Then at the last instant stopped dead in the air, 4 inches off the ground. Barry, however, kept going, flying off the seat, over the handlebars, over the blinking yellow sign, and into the muddy brown pool of water. His final wide-open scream died as his head plunged into the water. A few seconds later, he surfaced, coughing and spitting out the dirty water, which tasted and smelled like sewage. He grabbed the edge of the hole to pull himself out, but he slipped twice, falling back into the water. On the third try, he did crawl out. As he lay panting on the road, the warning sign blinked on and off, warning, keep away. Then Barry noticed that the spirit flyer was gone. He stood up, his knees shaking, a dirty pool of water at his feet. He looked up and down the street. The old red bike was nowhere in sight. Barry shivered and sneezed. The smelly water ran in small rivers from his hair onto his face. The president of the Cobra Club resembled a sick, wet sewer rat. Barry sneezed again. On a bench by the side of the street, a large black cat with green eyes stared at him. Scat, Barry said angrily. For some reason, the cat bothered him. The cat continued staring, then opened its mouth wide to show glistening sharp teeth. It hopped off the bench and ran straight toward Barry. Mouth open. Seeing the serious expression on the cat's face, Barry didn't wait around, but he took off running down the street. He never looked back. He didn't slow down, even when his soggy sneakers slipped off his foot. Barry ran one shoe the rest of the way home, leaving a trail of smelly water behind him. And that's the end of chapter 10. All right, so one person on. Probably Zapton Kaboom, no doubt. The only person that is ever on here. Yep. Hi, there's Zapton. All right, well, good night. Nobody's on, so other than you, so hope you're enjoying it. I hope people with children will listen to this. So really good lesson on New World Order and spiritual warfare. We'll be getting into that next at Grandfather Kramer's. So, good night. God bless everybody.